Once upon a time, not in the age of kings or ancient gods, but in a quiet modern world, there was a little girl who kept waiting for a phone call that almost never came. Her name was Emily, and somewhere far away was the father she still loved, even when she no longer understood why he stayed so distant. Emily lived with her mother, Amy. Their apartment was small, but warm enough to survive the winter. Amy tried her best to fill every silence with love, but some silences were too large for one person to carry alone. At school, Emily rarely spoke about her father when other children talked about weekends, family trips, or fathers waiting outside after class. Emily would smile quietly and pretend she needed to look at something else. But at night, when the world became quiet, she would open old messages on her mother's phone, short conversations, promises, words that slowly disappeared over time. I'll visit soon. We'll spend time together. Tell Emily I miss her. Children hold on to promises differently than adults do. Adults forget words. Children build entire worlds from them. Emily waited for every visit like it was a holiday. Sometimes he came. Sometimes he canceled. Sometimes he simply disappeared again into silence. And every time, Emily blamed herself a little more. Maybe she talked too much. Maybe she wasn't interesting enough. Maybe fathers only stayed close to daughters who were easier to love. Amy noticed the change slowly. Emily became quieter, then colder, then strangely angry over very small things. One afternoon, the school called Amy. Emily had started a fight with another girl, not because of insults, not because of bullying, because another student said, "At least my dad actually shows up." Amy drove to the school in silence. Emily sat in the office, arms crossed, eyes red, but refusing to cry. "Why would you do this?" Amy asked softly. Emily looked away, and for a moment, she looked much older than she really was. That evening, Amy called Emily's father for the first time in months. He answered immediately. There was frustration in his voice, confusion, shock. The next day, he came. Not with flowers, not with gifts, just himself, standing awkwardly near the school entrance, like a man who suddenly realized how much time had already passed. Emily saw him from the hallway window, and for a second, she became a child again. Hope returned so quickly, it almost hurt to watch. He tried to talk calmly. He asked questions, tried to explain work, distance, life. The kinds of explanations adults use when they don't know how to explain absence. Then finally, he looked at Emily and asked, "Why would you start a fight over something like that?" And Emily, after holding everything inside for so long, quietly answered, "Because it was the only time you came." Silence filled the space between them, heavy, uncomfortable, honest. Her father looked down, not because he was angry, but because sometimes the truth spoken by a child is too painful to face directly. That night, Emily sat quietly in her room. For the first time in a long while, she felt noticed. But deep inside, another feeling had already started growing. The fear that love only appears when something goes wrong. Children do not always ask for attention with words. Sometimes they ask through anger, through silence, through mistakes, through pain. And many parents never realize that behind difficult behavior, there is often a child still waiting to feel chosen. Amy stood by Emily's bedroom door that night and understood something she wished life had taught her earlier. A child can survive distance, but surviving emotional absence leaves invisible scars. Years later, Emily would remember that day clearly, not because of the fight, not because of school, but because it was the day she learned how far loneliness can push a child just to feel loved. Some children break rules not because they are bad, but because being ignored hurts far more than punishment ever could. And somewhere between silence, distance, and love that arrived too late, a little girl kept learning how to live with the feeling of waiting for someone who never fully stayed.